that you need to know, which is a topic you need to know for your GCSE biology exams. So variation basically refers to the differences seen between individuals. So differences between individuals. Okay, that was really terrible handwriting. Differences between individuals, right? So there are two sources of variation. You can either be different from other humans, essentially. Number one, because of your genetics, so your genes that are passed on from your mother and father. Or it can be caused by the environment, so environmental variation. So genetic variation and environmental variation. Genetic variation, as aforementioned, is variation caused by differences in the genes and can therefore be inherited. So it can be passed on to your offspring. For example, your hair color and eye color will often be inherited from your parents. Environmental is not inherited, and it's how the surroundings and lifestyle of the individual can change the characteristic of an individual. Environmental kind of sounds like the environment, right? But people often forget the lifestyle as well. It's not just the environment where the person is living in, it's also dependent on the lifestyle of the person. For example, if someone eats a lot, they're going to become fat, right? So environmental lifestyle. So for example, the color of a flower. It could be dependent on the pH of the soil that's affecting the color of the flower. Or something more relatable to us, the language, right? The language of humans that we speak. Even if you live in France, if you're born in France, for example, but you move to Germany, if your lifestyle is just speaking French to your family, then your French is going to develop, whilst your German might not. So it's also dependent on your lifestyle, not just your environment. So, and actually, there's a third one. I lied. Because although these two are the individual differences, there's also a third one that's in between, that's both genetics and environmental. So the third one is a combination of both the genetic, combination of both the genetic and the environmental factors. Such as, this might include height, right? Imagine your genes and your parents are both super tall. If you're malnourished and you're living in Africa, not stereotyping, but imagine you're in some poverty-stricken country where you don't have enough food. Well, even if your parents are both tall and both pass on the genes to become tall, if you don't have enough food, which is the environmental factor, you're still not going to become tall. So it's dependent on both the genetics and environmental. And an example of that would be height. So let's make a little Venn diagram to show genetic, environmental, and you should know that the area in the region in between is both. So what are some genetic factors? Well, eye color. No matter where you live, it's going to depend on your parents and the genes that they passed on to you. So it's going to be genetic. Or it could be the shape of your ears. It's going to be passed on to you. So basically, some most like physical traits of your body, they're most likely going to be genetic. You can kind of guess. Your blood type, obviously, it's not going to depend on the country you live in. If people from the U.S. they're gonna all have different blood types. It's not gonna be Americans have A and then Europeans have B. And your gender is also genetic. It's not like all French people are female and all British people are male, of course, right? Environmental are gonna be things like scars. You don't get scars passed on from your parents. You get them from your environmental. More specifically, that would be your lifestyle. Like if you get injured, you're gonna get scars, right? Tattoos. That's environmental. You don't get tattoos passed on to you from your parents, right? More so, this is again lifestyle. Hair length. This might be dependent on your environment. If you're living in a cold area, your hair might grow faster to keep you warm. Or your language. And another good example is the accent, more specifically. Even if you speak English, if you live in India, you might have a different accent to a British person or an American guy, right? They're all gonna have different accents. That's gonna be environmental. Your accent isn't passed on to you just because your parents are British. You might speak British and English with them, so that's gonna be environmental. It's not genetically passed on to you. Then what are some both factors? Skin color. If a white guy gets tanned a lot, their skin's gonna get darker. That's a good example. Your height, of course, as aforementioned, combination of both, and your weight. Even if your parents are both light, if you eat a ton of food, especially junk food, you're going to get much heavier, aren't you? And then we have two different types of variation. So these are both genetic variation and environmental variation. And of course, this section is both. But there's also two types of variation. By variation, I mean continuous and discontinuous variation. Okay, what do I mean by continuous and discontinuous variation? Okay, that line was really terrible. Continuous and discontinuous variation. Continuous is like smooth line, smooth growth, you could say. It's going to be things like your height or your foot length. Let me just write that a bit better. Foot length or your weight. Within a group of people, there's going to be people 100 centimeters, 150 centimeters, 200 centimeters, 50 kg, 100 kg, 150 kg. There's a smooth curve with a bunch of people in the line. Discontinuous is just completely different stuff. Like you might have eye color, and there could be some, I don't know, red eyes, blue eyes, and brown eyes. Well, they're not really continuous, right? They're completely different, separate categories. Another example could be your blood type. You might have A plus, A minus. I don't know if that's even a blood type. B, what else is that? I'm not really sure, but these are all separate categories, right? They're not smooth increases of 1 to 10, say. It's not a number increasing. It's completely different categories. That's why they're discontinuous. Now, all of these types of variations, like your height, your blood type, your skin color, scars, tattoo, ear shape, gender, these are all caused, or most of them are caused due to mutations. Actually, I lied before. Mutations only affect in genetic variation. Because mutation is basically how your genes change over time, either most definitely by accident, or they're not intended, but they just happen. So your genetic code might change during inheritance. And we'll look at mutations in the next video.